So I'm planning a video to map out the most accurate Star Trek timeline, inspired by the events of this episode. It's going to take a while. Hello, Rick here with my review of If Memory Serves, Episode 8 of Season 2 Star Trek Discovery. First off, let me get this out of the way, and let's have a look at the implications of the Red Angel's confirmed alteration of Discovery's timeline. So, we learn that if events played out without the Angel's interference, then Spock would have never saved Burnham, and she would have died on Vulcan, being eaten by this ravenous bug bladder beast. But she was saved. From now on, events are different, but not by much. The flashback into the original series episode, The Cage, serves to illustrate the point that the show's creators are using the original timeline exactly as it happened to build off. Therefore, as of this episode, we don't know if Discovery is now set in an alternate timeline from the original series and its following ones, explaining why Spock never talks of his adopted sister as she would have been dead. Or if the subsequent in-universe 130 years, including TOS, TNG, Voyager, DS9 and films, take place in this altered chain already. And you know what? I don't think CBS will say what the outcome truly ever is. So let's just copy and paste this timeline to here, because this way, if you want to interpret Discovery as now following its own timeline, you can. But if you want to maintain the relevance of the prior shows in the context of the franchise moving forwards, you can do that too. So now can we all just stop arguing about the relevance of Discovery? Talking of overhauls, I've got to say I like the Talosian design. This is the kind of visual update I was expecting from a Star Trek show made in 2018 set pre-TOS. The look mirrors but updates the look of the species, giving them a smoothed out, more alien look, less human prosthesis. They kept the subtle vein ripple, and even the basic shape of the robes mimicked the original. It's just more detailed, like an HD remaster. Though the level of light here is painfully obscuring, though you could argue that that was the point. Notice how Leland is being obscured by the background lighting, while Georgiou remains in focus. I think it's meant to show who really has the attention of the Admiralty in this scene, but still, too much. I enjoyed all the levels of deterrence around visiting Talos IV, the automated warnings, the reminder that it was a restricted zone, and then the false goddamn black hole that would have served to make Burnham flee had it not been for Spock. Once we touched down, the nostalgia was aplenty, and I'm curious to see how those who aren't familiar with original series Trek found it. I myself was grinning the whole time. Now we also get to see Ethan Peck go full Spock, and if anything, I'd say he's even more reserved than Nimoy's portrayal. The inclusion of Burnham's harsh words as a catalyst to force Spock to reject his human side leads to a fairly faithful interpretation of the character. Burnham even pokes fun at the beard, which made me genuinely laugh. It turns out that his perception of time has been messed with after attempting to mind meld with the Red Angel, leading him to his current deteriorating mental state. And he has indeed turned to the most powerful telepath he knows to try to fix his mind. They extract a fairly abstract price as payment in the form of Burnham's experiences of pain in distancing Spock. The switching in and out of their child actors in this scene serves to illustrate that this is the first time they've addressed this rift in their relationship, and perhaps set about a path to heal. Of course, Spock is one step ahead of Burnham, curtailing her explanations that she only wanted to protect him, so it falls to her to admit that she could probably have found a less hurtful way of doing things. Vina makes it quite clear that the Talosians are still dangerous and quite capable of extracting the thoughts themselves. From the minute they touched down, they were effectively the Talosians' playthings, doubling down as to why this planet is off limits. Pike orders the ship to travel to Talos to retrieve Spock, and the crew give him that look of "come again?" forcing Saru to voice what they're all thinking, that Talos is in restricted space. I was expecting Pike to say something like, "I know, I'm the one who restricted it." I wasn't expecting to see Vina brought back in full either, acting as the humanising factor to these Talosians, who remain very stern and direct in their our way or the highway approach. Arguably, the inclusion of a reciprocated affection from Pike means his ultimate fate is less cruel, in that he can be reunited with her. The minute he sees her in his office, as well as his moment on the bridge, made me smirk. Section 31 is way out of their depth here. Right now, this is Pike's rodeo. Let's just quickly take a look at Burnham's visions of the future she got from Spock, who got them from the Red Angel, who is a human, via the Talosians. We see some form of automated device similar to the Altered Discovery probe launch attacks on the Federation with devastating results. The statement is made that, without interference, the timeline they were on ultimately concludes in the destruction of the Federation. We see Earth, Andoria, Telar Prime, which I'm guessing, and I think that's Vulcan, which would make them the 4 founding worlds of the UFP. Section 31 drama is unfolding too, as Georgiou continues to make power plays by subverting Leland. I suspect her ultimate goal is to gain control of the organisation. After all, she suspected the Talosians' duplicity but allowed Leland to proceed anyway, and she's enjoying it. I'm still not certain if I could watch a whole series with Empress 31 at the centre. Yo does a good job portraying her, but I think she works better as a supporting character from where she can instigate and guide events. Pike is beginning to, well, I was going to say warm to, but that's not true, beginning to understand Tyler, and I think he buys his explanation that from Section 31, even if it's shady, he can help protect people and not face judgment. After all, almost everyone he's working with in 31 has dirt in their past. Then there's the confrontation between Culber and Tyler. I think Culber's reaction to Stamets trying to pick up where they left off is understandable, human and real. His frustration at feeling disconnected was telegraphed from the moment he returned, and poor Stamets, treating his return as a miracle, is not helping. It's again understandable, but a little selfish? No, perhaps naive is more accurate. In his attempts to help, he's clearly dancing around the issue that Culber died, which leads Culber to face the direct cause of his death, Ashvok. Oh boy. Awesome Cruise pulls it off well and comes across as pretty intimidating. He is angry, would not want to be in Ash's position right now. The frustration was palpable from Cruise, and it drowns out Latif's weak apology, exactly as intended. It doesn't really matter what Ash says here, Culber is looking to vent. I was thinking through the whole fight how these two were now in a similar position of trying to find who they are now. Then the show makes that line of thought apparent as the two guys' blows cease. Pike chastises Saru for not intervening, and they're both right. That situation could have been handled by their CO, and it's bad form to have two officers come to blows in front of the entire crew. Pike was right to scold Saru for letting it happen, and sends him away with a reminder that it's not acceptable. But a confrontation was inevitable, and I think everyone saw it coming. Once it had started, Saru's call to let it play out shows a good understanding of human nature. It was a primal venting of pent-up emotion that led to a personal revelation. Arium seems to be feeding intel to Section 31. Originally, Pike suspects Tyler, but is soon disproven when Leland continues to track them despite Tyler being monitored. I think it's safe to assume she was the one halting their jump to Talos II, and here the writers are using her status as an undeveloped background character to their advantage. Pike nor anyone else even glance at her when it comes to looking for the insider on the crew, so I'm curious to see how long it will last. Maintaining cover doesn't seem to be a focus of Arium, or more specifically the entity within her. If it were, she would have continued to implicate Tyler by not acting while he was confined. As it is, Section 31 intercepts them so soon after they contain Ash that her use of his access codes is undone by the episode's end. I'm glad they're not dragging it out, as it can be frustrating as an audience when we are aware of facts that the characters are not. Overall, this episode had good pacing, the action present was meaningful, we get answers to questions set up in the series so far, and the cast continue to operate in a way that takes into account the development that they received previously. This is honestly close to my favourite episodes of all time, due in no small part to the efficient and clever use of pre-existing canon to create a new tale in the form of Talos IV. And finally, this episode marks a distinct threat to the Star Trek universe as a whole. My only lingering concern is, with bigger stakes and changes come bigger pitfalls for a series, but Season 2 of Discovery has held my interest and curiosity so far, so perhaps it deserves a little credit. Thanks for listening, and I'm curious to see what you think for implications to the Star Trek universe. Are we going to have a multi-series spanning threat? Until next video, I'll catch you later. Rick, out.